On this inaugural episode of Hails and Fails, I take a look at the guitar that got me back into guitar, the Jackson JS32TQ. Join me. Beginner guitars play such an important part in the guitarical ecosystem. We generally don't take time to appreciate the guitars that got us to where we are now. Since I returned to playing guitar after a 10-year hiatus, I felt it natural to start with a beginner guitar. As it was 27 years ago, so it was earlier this year, when I landed a Jackson as my new first guitar. Hey heathens, thank you so much for joining me today. I am JD Blute, as the intro suggests, and the channel suggests, and pretty much everything about you being here suggests. This is Hails and Fails, the inaugural episode. Think of it as a gear review without so much of the gear review. I'll explain. Hails are things that I appreciate about whatever it is I'm reviewing. In this case, the JS32TQ Amaranth body. Fails, stuff that I don't particularly enjoy about whatever it is I'm reviewing. I'm still going to give you a playthrough, you're still going to get a mix, but I'm not going to give you the full detailed specs of this entire guitar, because you can just click on that in the link in the description below. As I said, up for judgment today is my Jackson JS32TQ in Amaranth Black. I don't know Amaranth at all. I just thought this was really cool when I saw it in the store, and it was definitely the right price. It's a sub $500 guitar that it was between this and a Squier Strat that actually, for whatever reason, had a humbucker in the bridge, which I don't find locally to me at all, so it kind of piqued my interest. But I have an affinity for Jackson. I started with Jackson many years ago, and I figured this was as good a place as any to come back home to playing guitar. This guitar right now is an E standard tuning, and it has a hell of a lot of bite because these are 8-gauge strings on top, because when I was relearning, I have wussy muscles, so I made it easier for me. I'm going to change them, but for now, these handle E standard and the occasional drop D, which I generally tend to play in. Without further ado, let's take it into the mix. Honestly, I really like how it sounds in the mix. If you've been around this channel a while, you know that I use it on my Sundays with Ola fairly regularly, or at least I used to. Let's start with the headstock. It is, of course, your classic Jackson headstock, which, if you're into metal, is a pretty big hail. It's got the look, the attitude, the iconic cursive logo that lets everyone know you're there to shred. I am not. I'm not great at shredding, but that's not this guitar's fault. I'm going to spin it around here. The tuning pegs for a sub $500 guitar are honestly a lot better than I expected, so I'm going to give that another hail. They don't slip, and if you use the locking method of wrapping your strings, which is where you wrap it around itself, well, hang on, you can't see that, which is where you wrap it around itself and bring it, which I did not do. I'm going to as soon as I change the strings. That wasn't very smart. But I'm pretty happy. Like, even without having used it, this thing stays in tune. After I did a few things, but we'll get into that. I also float fairly frequently between E and drop D, as I said. This tuning peg in particular handles it no problem, and I don't really have a lot of issues with the spacing or anything like that up there. Moving directly downward, though, the nut is an absolute, abject, abysmal fail. It is a cheap piece of plastic that I guess I can say I'm happy it was filed correctly, but that's about all I can say. In my guitar's instance, it's not actually even the correct width. If you rub your finger like that, it sticks out. And if you rub your finger like that, it sticks out a little bit. Not great, but again, it's a sub $500 guitar. Yeah, sub $500 guitar. You're going to see where people cut corners and didn't go all in with that handcrafted quality. That's fine. It's an easy fix, but as this guitar is sold to you, that's a fail for me. Before I move away from the nut, at one point I did have, I want to say 11s or 12s on here because I was bringing this thing down to C standard, which it handles. Not really that much of an issue, but the nut wasn't filed and I didn't think about that. So if you are thinking of buying a shred machine for those Amon Amarth tunings, make sure you have somebody you trust or be somebody you trust to file the string holes, string slots. You know, I've actually never figured out what those are called. Anyway, make sure they're filed correctly. Moving on to the neck, it's a little bit of beginner beware at this point. Fret edges can be a real problem. And what I mean by that is if you look profile-wise at the guitar, and then you slide your finger up thusly. Yes, I said thusly. And of course, you're going to do the same on the other side. You might end up cutting yourself. There is an acoustic guitar downstairs from the studio where I'm at that I do not play anymore because frets 2 and 3 absolutely, I don't know if you can see this and I don't know if you want to, absolutely shred my fingers. For a below $500 guitar, I think it's even below $300 in the States, these frets are remarkable, and I would even put them up against both his younger brothers in metal, as it were, the Schecter and the PRS that you've seen featured on my channel. I have nothing bad to say about any of the fret edges, and this thing more than keeps its place. So I can't hate it. I really can't. Before I move away from the neck, as I held it in profile, you can probably see it's a thin C or a D. Not 100%. No, D is fatter. It's really thin. It's a Jackson neck. If you know what a Jackson neck feels like, this is a Jackson neck. Lower priced, but the same thing. If you don't know what a Jackson neck feels like, it is just shy of being able to squeeze your fingers together like almost completely. Like I don't know if I can explain it in a non-guitarical way, but it basically makes fretting anything as easy as possible because there's not a lot of neck getting in the way. That's pretty much how I can say it. For those of you who know guitar, it's a shred neck. It really is. I can't say enough good things about it. Moving on down, I don't solo a hell of a lot, or very well for that matter. So high fret access isn't really that big of a priority for me, but the JS32 has, first of all, the blockiest bolt. I'm going to try and get that up for you guys. The blockiest bolt I can ever recall actually playing by myself. But you can get your thumb. I should probably show you this a proper way. I actually can't. There we go. You can get your thumb right in there. And what that does from the front, I'll stick my thumb out. This is improper technique, but that's pretty much what you've come to expect from my channel, right? So you can stick your thumb out. You can see mine wiggling there. And you can get all the way up to over the frets. You have no issues if you are shred inclined, or if you want to learn shred. No issues getting up to the higher frets. No issues playing those classic solos that you're looking to learn. I consider this a huge hail because I've played guitars that don't allow you, like they have 22, 24 frets, and they don't allow you proper access. You kind of have to curve your hand like that in order to make it happen. So even though I'm not exactly an expert with it, and even though I don't necessarily use it, the fact that it's available to me, still a 100% hail in my book. If we check out the back of the body, and I get the glare off of it, close enough. This is what you guys get. You see simplicity at its absolute best, and that's what you want in a beginner guitar. If this guitar had a different bridge, then it would also obviously have the spring access panel here. It does not have that kind of a bridge, so you don't. So this is literally just string access and control pot access. I think that's what people call it. I'm handing out 2 hails at this point, one for absolute simplicity and one for string through. I don't necessarily play modern metal, but the stability of a string through design means a hell of a lot to someone who actually learned how to fix a Floyd Rose bridge so many years ago because there was no guitar shop near him in order to fix it. I much, much prefer this. Now, I'm not hating on Floyd's. I love them. They have their place. I hope to pick up a guitar that has one. But for right now, and especially for a beginner, I really like this. I won't bother opening those. That's just the back of the... You know what's in there. Because this is a beginner guitar, I'm not really going to comment on the electronics or the pickup quality because I couldn't even tell you what they are. However, I will say they have handled just about everything I have thrown at them with a reasonable amount of accuracy, and quite frankly, if I'm being honest, I don't hate the tone. I've been able to finagle, I have a couple of amp sims, I've been able to finagle a really, really good sound out of this. So, again, don't know what's in there. I think they're just Jackson designed. For sub $500, this guitar gets really good tone. One thing I absolutely cannot excuse, and please let me know how wrong I am in the comments, I absolutely cannot excuse the abomination that is a Tune-o-matic bridge, and this is a copy of a Tune-o-matic bridge. This is honestly, to me, worth 3 fails. 1, because it's not even a real bridge. 2, if you change your strings, and in order to do so, you have to turn the guitar upside down in order to retrieve said strings, which we already hailed as string through. Do you know what happens? The bridge falls out. Do you know who didn't know that? And who doesn't have a working guitar table? And who cracked his living room floor with his knockoff Tune-o-matic bridge? That's a fail. Both on me and on the guitar. I'm sticking to it. I also have to give another fail for a Tune-o-matic bridge in general, because this forces you to play at an action that is ridiculously high. Now, this guitar in particular, I spent more than I want to admit in terms of time on setting it up to getting it as low as possible. When you pick this up from the store, if they do not set it up for you, your action can be measured in feet, and it is not able to get much lower. I probably could with this guitar, but I don't have the measuring instruments, nor do I have a luthier around or a guitar technician around that I would particularly trust to do this. I'm listing that as a fail in the sense of a beginner guitar because there's already enough barrier to entry with guitar, and a bridge that feels unnatural. Because to me, it feels unnatural. I could be horribly wrong and you might love it, and that's totally fine. We're allowed differing opinions. But you have to know there are people like me, just as there are people like you. A bridge that feels this unnatural? I don't know. It's difficult. I've actually had to get used to it almost every single time I play. I'll sit there and I'll just chug for a little bit just to make sure I understand what the mechanics of this bridge actually are. Whereas opposed to the other two guitars, they're all low-profile bridges. I don't really have an issue. I just switch one back to the other, no problem. This one takes a bit of getting used to. As a beginner guitar, I consider that a fail. It should be as easy as possible to get into the guitar, to learn to love playing the guitar. But in reality, it's a minor gripe. By now, you've made up your mind about this guitar. And I hope I've shed it in a positive light, because I have to say there are way more hails than there are fails. And I'm going to stick you with probably the weirdest hail I could possibly think of. But as I was looking this over and I was looking over the other guitars that I own, this really slapped me in the face as something valuable. I'm going to stick this right in your face. Do you see that strap peg? That is extra wide and extra deep. Like it's bigger than most strap pegs. This is phenomenal. This is a huge hail, because part of playing guitar as a kid in terms of a beginner guitar is looking cool. And I don't know that anybody anymore swings their guitars around in anything else than an ironic fashion. But I do know that everybody likes to air guitar with a real guitar to their favorite songs. And when you put a strap on this thing, it's not going anywhere. That amount of security I would have loved. My prior Jackson 27 years ago did not have these. And I lost it at a gig. Wasn't great. Had that guitar for a while. Didn't have it much longer after that gig. Every other guitar I've had, I haven't dropped, but I haven't felt as secure. Now, the experienced guitarists are going, well, just get strap locks, blah, blah, blah. This is $200-something in the States. This was $350 in Canada. I am not adding strap locks to a sub-$400 guitar, sub-$500 guitar. I'm not doing it. Neither should a beginner. Amazing job by Jackson with this foresight. I have no idea if this is on the JS series or if it's on the Dinky series in general, but really outstanding foresight. Can't take my hat off. I literally can't take my hat off, but I do tip my hat to Jackson for that. There you have it. Those are my hails and fails of the Jackson JS32TQ Amaranth. I have no idea what the TQ stands for. I have no idea why it's the 32. I know Amaranth is black. I learned that from Jackson. My final words of wisdom regarding this particular guitar: you could do much, much, much worse. If you have between $200 to $500 to spread around and you're trying to compare what your new guitar might be, I strongly recommend putting this in your list if you are a metal player. I don't think this will help jazz folks. I really don't. I have no idea. I don't play jazz. If you want a fun, easy to get into, simple, no frills, lightweight, forgot to give that as a hail, definitely lightweight, just an all-around easy beginner shred or metal or I guess even hard rock, whatever it is along that guitar-based vein that would require some distortion, absolutely think about putting this into the guitars that you try. Always try them, always try more than one, make this one of the ones you try. My one caveat to turn this into a fantastic guitar, and it's something that I will do, I've already mentioned, but I'll bring it up again. Change the nut. This guitar will last you a hell of a long time. If you like how I do reviews, I'm going to be doing more of them, basically of the stuff I own, because that's all I can get my hands on at this point. Leave me a like down below. It really helps move the channel along and gets me into more people's eyes and ears, which I would very much appreciate. If you like the guitar or don't like the guitar, let me know in the comments below. We can always have a civil discussion. If you're new here, consider subscribing. It can't hurt. I don't get worse. If you've watched my Sunday with Olas, I don't get worse. Only gets better from here. And as we always say, heathens, be safe, be consensual, and if you cannot be good, well then, sweet Satan on a pogo stick, be good at it.